Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. You step outside your home. There are no traffic rules, no police, no courts, no elections, no parliament, no Supreme Court, no fundamental rights. Someone stronger than you grabs your land. You protest. He laughs. Who is going to stop me? You go to the police. There is no law. You go to the court. There is no constitution. You go to the government. The government itself changes the rules every day. Would you call this a country? No. It is simply a crowd of millions of people living together. Now comes the biggest question: what transforms millions of people into one nation? The answer is just one document: the Constitution. Today's story is not about a book, it is about the invisible force that holds together over 1.4 billion people, speaking hundreds of languages, following different religions, eating different food, and living in different climates. Without it, India would simply be a map. With it, India became a republic. This is the incredible story of the Indian Constitution. Chapter 1: Before the Constitution, Who Made the Rules? Let's travel back in time, not to 1947, not to 1857, even further. For thousands of years, India was ruled by kings. Every kingdom had its own rules. Under Ashoka, the laws were different, under Cholas, different again. During Delhi Sultanate, another system. Then came Mughals, again a new administrative structure. One country, many rulers, many laws. People obeyed the king because the king was the law. There was no single document that guaranteed equal rights to every person. Then history changed forever. Chapter 2: A trading company that started making laws. In 1600, a British trading company arrived. The East India Company came to trade, but slowly trade became power. Power became politics. Politics became rule. After the Battle of Plassey in 1757 and the Battle of Buxar in 1764, the company was not just selling goods anymore. It was governing millions of Indians. But there was a problem. How do you rule such a vast land? You need laws. So began the constitutional evolution of India. Not in one day, but over nearly 2 centuries. Chapter 3: The Slow Evolution of India's Constitution. The first major step came with the Regulating Act 1773. For the first time, the British Parliament decided it could not leave such a huge country entirely to a private company. A Governor General of Bengal was created. The Supreme Court at Calcutta was established. For the first time, the idea of centralized administration appeared. But problems continued. So came Pitt's India Act 1784. Now the British government itself started supervising the East India Company. This was the beginning of direct political control. Then came the Charter Acts of 1813, 1833, and 1853. Each one slowly changed India's governance. The Charter Act of 1833 declared the Governor General of Bengal as the Governor General of India. Administration became more centralized. The seeds of a modern civil service were also planted. Then came a turning point. Chapter 4: The Revolt That Changed Everything. In 1857, India exploded, soldiers revolted, kings rebelled, common people joined. The British called it Sepoy Mutiny. India remembers it as the first war of independence. The revolt failed, but it shook Britain. The British realized something important. A private company could no longer govern India. So in 1858, the East India Company disappeared. This happened through the Government of India Act 1858. Now, India officially became part of the British Empire. A Secretary of State for India was created in London. The Viceroy became the representative of the British monarch. A new chapter had begun. Chapter 5: Indians Demand a Voice. As education spread, a new generation emerged: lawyers, teachers, journalists, freedom fighters. They asked one simple question: if this is our country, why don't we make our laws? The British responded with reforms. The Indian Councils Acts of 1861 and 1892 allowed limited Indian participation. Not enough. The Morley Minto reforms of 1909 introduced separate electorates. Instead of uniting Indians, they deepened divisions. Then came the Montagu Chelmsford reforms of 1919. They introduced diarchy in provisions. Some subjects like education were handled by Indian ministers, others remained under British control. Half freedom, half control. It did not satisfy Indians. Then comes the chapter 3, the last British constitution. In 1935, Britain introduced the biggest constitutional law ever passed for India, the Government of India Act 1935. This act became the backbone of India's future constitution. Many features we use today came from here, like federal structure, governor's office, public service commissions, federal court, provincial autonomy, emergency provisions, administrative framework. Even today, a significant part of India's constitution draws inspiration from this act. But Indians wanted something bigger, not reforms, freedom. Chapter 7, the dream of a constitution written by Indians. The freedom movement was not only about removing British rule, it was also about deciding how should free India govern itself. In 1934, M.N. Roy first proposed the idea of a constituent assembly. Later, the Indian National Congress supported it. Finally, the Cabinet Mission Plan of 1946 accepted the idea. For the first time, Indians would write their own constitution. Not London, not the British Parliament, India herself. Chapter 8, the Constituent Assembly. On 9th December 1946, the Constituent Assembly met for the first time. Dr. Sachidananda Sinha became the temporary president. Soon after, Dr. Rajendra Prasad became the permanent president. The drafting committee was formed on 29th August 1947. Its chairman, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. But here is something fascinating. The constitution was not written by one person. There were committees, experts, lawyers, economists, administrators, freedom fighters, women members, representatives from across India. Every article was debated, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. Nothing was rushed. Chapter 9, Objectives before Articles. Before writing the Constitution, the Assembly first asked itself, what kind of India are we trying to build? Jawaharlal Nehru answered this through the Objectives Resolution on 13 December 1946. It later became the soul of the preamble. The objectives were clear. India would be sovereign, democratic republic, justice for all, liberty for all, equality for all, fraternity for all. Notice something. Before discussing governments, they discussed values because institutions survive only when values survive. Chapter 10, the birth of the Constitution. After nearly 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days, the Constitution was ready. It contained 395 articles, 22 parts, and 8 schedules originally. It was adopted on 26 November 1949, but it came into force on 26 January 1950. Why 26 January? Because it honored the Purna Swaraj Declaration of 1930. India became not just independent but a sovereign democratic republic. Later, through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment, the words socialist, secular, and integrity were added to the preamble. Chapter 11, Why is India's constitution so special? It is the world's longest written constitution. Why? Because India is incredibly diverse. One rule cannot fit everyone. The constitution carefully explains powers, rights, elections, courts, emergencies, states, languages, local governments, schedules, special provisions. It tries to leave a little confusion as possible. Chapter 12, Federal yet Unitary. Here is one of the greatest mysteries of Indian polity. Is India federal or unitary? The answer both. Federal features include a written constitution, supremacy of the constitution, division of powers through the union, state and concurrent lists, independent judiciary, rigid amendment process for certain provisions, bicameral parliament at the union level. But India also has strong unitary features. A single constitution, single citizenship, integrated judiciary, all India services like IAS, IPS, Indian Forest Service. Strong center during emergencies, appointment of governors by the center, residuary powers with the union. This unique combination is why India is often called a union of states, not merely a federation. Chapter 13, Parliamentary or Presidential. Now imagine two different countries. In one country, the president directly runs the government. He chooses ministers, he remains in the office for a fixed term. This is the presidential system like the United States. In another country, people elect parliament. The majority party forms the government. The prime minister leads the executive. The government survives only as long as it enjoys the confidence of the lower house. This is the parliamentary system followed by India and the United Kingdom. India deliberately chose the parliamentary model because it promotes accountability to parliament, collective responsibility of the Council of Ministers, and closer coordination between the legislature and the executive in a diverse democracy. Next is Chapter 4, Parliamentary versus Presidential System. The difference is simple. In a parliamentary system, executive is drawn from the legislature. Prime Minister is the real executive. President is the constitutional head. Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. Government can fall through a no confidence motion, flexible but sometimes politically unstable. In a presidential system, executive and legislature are separate. President is both head of the state and government. Fixed tenure provides stability. Ministers are usually not members of the legislature. Greater separation of powers, but potential for executive legislative deadlock. India preferred accountability over rigidity while still ensuring continuity through constitutional safeguards. Moving on to the grand conclusion. Every time you vote, the Constitution speaks. Every time the Supreme Court protects fundamental rights, the Constitution speaks. Every time Parliament passes a law, the Constitution speaks. Every time a state and the Union resolve disputes through the constitutional mechanisms, the Constitution speaks. It is not merely a legal document, it is a promise that no individual is above the law, a promise that power belongs to the people, a promise that despite immense diversity, India will remain one nation under one constitutional framework. And perhaps that is the greatest achievement of the Indian Constitution. It transformed an ancient civilization into a modern democratic republic where authority flows not from a king but from we the people of India.